So my name is Govan Whittles, the host of the IMM Institute's Friday Flash Talk.
This is the platform where we hope to bring you insightful views on the latest marketing trends.
Brands are really applying them to their strategy.
Convenience and being closer to your customer.
Guests who are engaged in helping move the industry forward. Welcome back to another installment of the IMM Institute's Friday Flash Talk. My name is Govan Whittles, and it's such a pleasure to have you back on this platform where we hope to explore the latest trends in marketing and supply chain and talk about the direction which these industries are going. Today, we're fully focused on marketing and we're discussing retail marketing, specifically revolutionizing retail, the trends, technologies, and the transformations. Look, we really appreciate all the support that we've been getting for the IMM Friday Flash Talk, and we really like that you guys are sharing it on LinkedIn, on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, even on TikTok, and a few posts that I've seen on Instagram. So please continue to do so. And as always, this is the platform where we bring you some of the most plugged in speakers in the world of marketing and supply chain. And today is no different. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Prathana Amrithlal. She is a seasoned professional with extensive experience spanning multiple sectors, including academia, retail, wholesale, and FMCG, that's fast-moving consumer goods. I feel like we don't need to say the full words because everyone knows the terms on the IMM Friday Flash Talk. Prathana has also held prominent positions within renowned companies such as Tiger Brands, Unilever, Godrej, Massmart, and Spa, where she's contributed significantly to the business strategy. And she's also acquired knowledge through her work and experiences both in SA, Africa, abroad in the UK, Shanghai, Philippines, India, New York, and Germany. Um, Prathana passed the MBA cum laude and was awarded the valedictorian. So today we really do have a heavy hitter here, Dr. Amrithlal. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Welcome to the Friday Flash Talk. And as usual, we have our resident IMM Graduate School specialist. Today it is Fabian Tamele, who will be helping us shepherd this conversation along. Fabian is a seasoned academic in the fields of digital marketing, brand management, business management, and entrepreneurship. Fabian has sharpened his expertise over the years and enjoyed the opportunity to consult and train for industry-leading enterprises across South Africa and Mozambique. Fabian will be helping us get the conversation going in the right direction. And this, I think, is going to be one of our better conversations because we're talking about retail and we know South Africans love retail shopping. Everyone on the continent does. But Dr. Prathana, thank you so much for joining us. I'll hand over to you just to make a few introductory remarks about where the conversation is going today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I think especially on such a relevant topic. The retail industry is undergoing significant transformation, and this is driven by technological advancements and changing consumer behaviors. We've seen key trends, and the ones that I'm hoping that we can unpack today include omni-channel retailing, sustainability, data-driven analytics and decision-making, and technological innovation. This includes AI and blockchain. We know that retailers must invest in digital transformation. They need to develop sustainability strategies in order to remain competitive and relevant. So looking to unpacking these rich discussions in terms of the transformation of the retail environment.
Thank you. Fabian, when I say revolutionizing retail in 2025, what comes to mind? What do you start thinking about?
Yeah, thank you, Govan. It's a lot of issues actually, but they all center around one thing, which is digital technologies. It's more or less, the focal point of where all, enterprises seem to be moving towards, which is to learn to leverage digital data and leverage it for the sake of, increasing customer value. we talk of things that would have seemed quite complex to us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, especially pre-COVID, post-COVID. You can see the major shift and change that occurred. But these things are becoming more and more of a reality, My colleague here touched on omni-channel retailing, which is really a key aspect of retailing right now. We talk of an ecosystem, a digital ecosystem, where we're trying to make the line between virtual and traditional basically seamless, almost as if it doesn't exist. You are shopping. I'll give you an example. You're shopping, you're in the store, but you're shopping physically, but you're also in app while you're at the store, and you grab a bottle of wine, you go to the till, you get to the till, you pay for it, you swipe your loyalty card, and your loyalty card kicks in with your app, which then takes the fact that you've just bought a bottle of wine and starts to suggest some pairings that go with the wine that you will then just, at the click of a button, get them delivered to your place as you arrive. So it's essentially where the industry is gravitating towards, and I think that is a revolution.
Well, I mean, hopefully you're not walking with your phone while pushing the trolley and you're on the app. But that definitely does sound like an ordinary day in the mall for most families.
Absolutely.
When we're talking about revolutionizing retail, Prathana, does it mean that retail was stuck in a rut? I
I
mean,
don't think so.
is
I don't
COVID
think.
maybe the marker?
Yeah, so I think, retail, just in terms of what goes with retail, you need to have the passion and the zest to serve that shopper because the customer is king, right? And I think COVID has just helped exemplify that because, the experience that, Fabian now spoken to around brick and mortar versus in-store, our consumers are looking for a frictionless experience. And I think it's just been exemplified with what had to be put in place, reaction strategies to COVID to remain relevant and competitive. We've seen e-commerce actually turn around successfully. So I think Checker 6060 is a great example of that. And we've seen that post-COVID trends has also remained with the shopper. It's all about convenience now and who can offer them the best in retail, whether it's in store. Do I want to stand in that queue? Do I get my goods delivered to my store and to my home? And what we see abroad is that there's even drone technology that actually helps you unpack that. So I think there's so much more that South Africa, can get to. And I think the best is yet to come in that space.
There is a lot more that we could be doing in retail, and I think that there are countries that are way further advanced, but our economy is heavily dependent on the retail sector for employment, right?
Yes.
And it's basically what we lean on the most when it comes to running the country, getting the wheels of the or the cogs of the economy turning. Has that had an impact on how fast we revolutionize our retail, Prathna?
Yes, I think it has. I think, a lot of retail provides sort of the bread and butter scenarios for so many of South African employees, keeping them engaged. And I think in terms of yes, there's going to be a large degree of AI and automation. We've seen things like traditional stock taking being replaced, by robotics and AI. But there's a large degree of in-store labor. The part of South Africa's SEM sector, predominantly SEM 1 to 3 and sort of 4 to 6, that still looks to engage with the shopper in store. And I think therein lies great untapped opportunity in terms of how we enhance that shopping experience in store.
Mm. Fabian, what's the experience in other countries, but also what's your view on holding us back or maybe helping us go forward because of our heavy reliance on the retail sector for jobs?
It's definitely a catch 22. Retailers are big employers. ShopRite, for example, is employing 160,000 people, making it the biggest private sector employer in the country. So they do have a big impact. But I think all of the technology, someone has said to me that, look, it's about skills adaptation. It's about skills adaptation. It's not, let's bring in this technology, let it replace you. But let's bring in this technology and you learn we teach you how to use it best. And we give you skills that can help you cross over. Other countries, in my personal opinion, other African countries in particular are quite still lagging a bit in the sense that the concept of online shopping is still one that is being embraced. It's in the process. They'll get there, but South Africa is quite ahead, given the amount of access to smartphones, one, two, access to extremely good networks. I'm talking about little cell phone quality network, because that's what allows you to then get on this platform. So there is still a gap, and it's an infrastructural gap more than anything else. And once the infrastructure is in place, then the market tends to start embracing. And also the standard of living gap in terms of people having access to these devices. So I think it's still quite a minute before we see this rolled out fully in other countries. But South Africa is definitely, I think, on the right track. And yeah, well, let me not go ahead of myself. I wanted to talk about how AI actually is helping this our companies so better than they ever were.
I think that, well, I mean, we're talking about the tools available to the consumer, right? But if you're a marketing professional and you're working with a retail brand, and you're faced with the reality of omni-channel retailing, where a lot of people engage through an app and then kind of end up in the store. Are you developing separate marketing strategies, Prathna, where
Yes.
one is guided by what we can incorporate for digital, and then the other one we say, "Ah, Shayman, not everyone's on their phones. Let's do the out of home, a few pamphlets here and there." Because
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I still look for the pamphlets in my mailbox, and then we pick out some stuff, circle them, and we go to the shops.
Yeah, such a relevant question. And I think, there absolutely has to be a distinct set of strategies that serves your shopper in store and that serves your online shopper. So paid searches, how do you grab, that digital space? Because, even that space too is being bombarded and each retailer is trying to vie for that online shopper's attention. So how do you then, and yes, to your point, you got to then curate these strategies. And yes, most retailers that I've worked with are actually doing that. And you'll find that ultimately it's serving that shopper need. Am I serving the shopper that comes into my store? And I know that shopper in the lower LSM shops have broadsheets. So they literally have, a series of broadsheets that they go through, and then they identify where they're going to get the best bang for their buck. And then that's how they go out and actually do their shop. And then in the online space, Google speaks about this always on and always connected. And it's such a reality because you literally could get onto your mobile device at the ease of a button and compare prices and then decide which e-commerce retailer you'd like to shop at. And the choices, I think South Africans are now becoming spoiled for choice. We've had initially, the Checkers 6060, phenomenal success. We've then had Pick n Pay launch ASAP, and then we've got Spar2U. That's just in the pure retail environment on the grocer side. And then we've got on the apparel side, a whole lot of retailers that have also now, offering e-commerce, with ease of deliveries and returns, even so. So strategies are definitely curated to serve that online shopper and serve the in-store shopper. But I think when it comes to, to the in-store, it's really about retail talent for the future. Because, the retail staff in store also need to be tech savvy. They need to be emotionally intelligent, and they have to be insight driven because they're now competing for that shopper's basket, not only in their store, but also in the online space.
Is that an
And
awareness of marketing then from the
yes.
insta people? And well, what are you essentially talking about? Training up the staff in the stores to be more than customer friendly, but marketing friendly, or what?
So I think it's having a thorough understanding of navigation, so where product lies, because the shopper that comes into store, we talk about positive dwell time and negative dwell time. We want to excite and delight shoppers in the store. You want to get them to engage in your store. And the worst thing ever is not finding a product or having to walk to many different aisles, before finding that. So, you end up losing shoppers because of that. So I think it's twofold. The one is shoppers really just being able to be served by the best in-store teams who understands, where product lies and can navigate them and cue them to the direct section, but also having sort of that, tech savvy ability to know that I'm competing, with my online counterparts in the e-commerce space. And that's when you get to senior levels like, a departmental manager and a store manager that can engage and retain their shoppers. I mean, retail even has face recognition now. Some of our, retail outlets have put that into their stores, and that becomes very personalized. You've also got sort of AI technology that then grabs your mobile and links that to, when you enter into a store environment, and then you suddenly get into a shopping mall. It was the Pokemon, effect that went through, where you get pinged with an SMS, and you get told the latest deals specifically in that mall. And suddenly, you then find yourself getting into an outlet that you never planned to, and your shopping basket and occasion then just increases because of that.
There's so many opportunities when it comes to digital marketing in the retail space. But Fabian, how is that weighed up by the marketing team? Are we seeing a shift in attention and resources towards digital away from traditional retail marketing strategies?
I think, and I was about to actually pose this question to Dr. Prathana, as she is right there on the field, which is the fact that when we treat when we have two separate strategies that are addressing traditional and other ones addressing digital, I do feel like it does lead to sort of a silo mentality, one where it's like, this is my camp and that is your camp, and over time, it does threaten the ability for us to move towards that seamless, networked type of setup where we're talking of that digital ecosystem. There's no border between in-store and virtual. We're all just addressing one client, and I don't know. It's actually a question that I have for Dr. Prathana. Don't you think that's an issue, the fact that it's still two separate strategies that are looking at this? Shouldn't we be moving more towards one strategy that's actually looking at everything? Which is speaking to your question, Gordon, of is marketing straying towards digital or traditional? I think they still create different factions within the marketing team, basically.
Wow.
And I don't think that's progressive.
Well, now I'd love to hear the answer to this.
It's such a relevant question, and I think so. Ultimately, we're serving the same shopper, right? So the strategy, particularly around the omni-channel, and I'll give you a very practical example. An in-store shopper would purchase, for example, a 6-pack of long life milk, where an online shopper would purchase just 1 liter. So when it comes to that kind of nuances, the strategy from a item selection perspective would be nuanced in terms of the assortment that actually gets onto a promotion. So in terms of having to serve the shopper and their need state, that strategy remains, it's actually unified, because ultimately, to your point, Fabian, you are, serving the shopper that has a need state, and your strategy cannot be different across brick and mortar and in-store from a shopper need state perspective, right? But when it comes to the item selection, just the practicality around, what gets onto that, the motorbike of that delivery on 6060 or Spar to You or ASAP, the practical nature of that. And we've seen some retailers, when they did, when they did promote the bulk packs, had to then invest in sort of little buckies for the period of the promotion, because it was such a hit, because shoppers now suddenly get bulk items even through an e-com platform, but the model and the service model didn't serve for that. So that was just learnings from all of the retailers that I had engaged with in terms of the items that they select, when it comes down to assortment and it comes down to pricing. So pricing strategy as well as item selection will differ, but ultimately, in terms of having to serve the mid-month shopper, because we know that, promotional deals during mid-month differ from that at month end, where you've got your bulk, you've got your bulk buy and traditionally trolleys in store, being packed high and shoppers, purchasing and filling up their baskets, for month end. The mid-month shop differs from that. And therein lies the opportunity where strategies actually differ within your daily convenience strategy. So we would generally get into a convenience store and grab your bread and milk. These are now available, on an e-com platform and not at different, pricing. So you're not having to pay a premium for this. So I think to summarize, your pricing strategy and your item selection strategy, is where the nuances come in to serve the shopper in store and to serve that shopper online.
If Tell me, Prathana, do South African retail shoppers make decisions just based on pricing, or are there strategies that you can employ that could sway them away from making a decision on price? Because we all get those lists of what's the cheapest food basket, and yet we all are loyal to our brands.
Yes.
And
Yes, so we've got what we call open-ended and closed-ended decisions. So, and it speaks back to equity, right? So equity is I am going to purchase a specific brand, and I have listed the brand name on my shopping list. And that sort of is a closed-ended, decision. But then in store, what does sway a shopper is the little ticketing system that you find very erratically put in the store that calls out a price point. And our research actually shows that that actually has the ability to sway a shopper, because there was a pilot done, which I happened to be fortunately a part of, and we found that even for items not on promo but ticketed, triggered in the shopper's mind that actually I'm getting a deal here. And so if on my list I had a specific brand, am I able to switch my brand, but again to a brand that they trust? So price does play an important role in terms of switching. However, and surprisingly for me, through a piece of research that was done, we uncovered that our lower SEM shoppers are actually the most price, brand loyal. They do not have the disposable income to purchase another brand. If the brand that they trust, and they switch to another brand, if that brand fails, then they're doomed to the product, until they get their next paycheck. And so they remain loyal unless they're given a sample and they're able to experience the product, they're able to sample it, and then they build trust in the brand. But you get, certainly do get your mix of brand loyal, and then you get your shoppers that are open to switching based on trust in the brand and based on the price point. In retail, there's something called a consumer decision tree. And that tree really speaks to the number of decisions that goes and we learn this in marketing, that goes through a shopper's mind. Do I shop a specific category, and is my first decision brand? I know I'm going to buy the brand. And then do I shop the format of the product? And then do I shop the variant of the product? And in that decision tree, price fits in. And sometimes price and brand are very interlinked. And again, it goes back to trust in the brand.
well, I mean, if I'm a marketing professional and you've just said that, I know where to focus my next strategy, which is the lower SCMs. And I think we're already getting a few tips. Fabian, what do you think?
Yeah, look, in a market where at least 10 million people are living on 350 rands per month, I think price is definitely a big hitter. It's a big determinant of what direction they head to. I do think, and this is a question I have for Dr. Prathana as well, which is, okay, from my side, this is what I know. And I know there are one or two institutions that, retailers that are actually taking this very seriously to realize that, well, one, we're in the toughest economic times. Two, there's an extremely large part of the population that really does not have, the capacity to afford whatever it is that they want. And what are retailers doing about this? So I think ShopRite, for example, has been using AI in order to, what they have. ShopRite is about 12 petabytes of data. That's just consumer related data from their extra savings loyalty system and all of that stuff. They got a lot of data for AI, and they're using that, to leverage that data and come up with strategies that allow, the pricing, that address pricing issues for the lower LSMs. ShopRite is a low income. Well, no, there's Checkers, right? But just the ShopRite shop itself, is focusing on the lower LSM side, and they're using that. They are currently selling what 1.5 million items per week that are below 5 rands or below. 1.5 million items per week that are 5 rands or below. And that is actually thanks to how they're using data to their advantage through AI, to try and just, find ways of giving value to a very, very, very large segment of the population of South Africa. So, my question to Dr. Prathana there is the fact that, like, are other brands also doing this? Is this just is it a ShopRite thing? Because you're on the ground, and you're working, with Spa, it's this, is that, and like, are they embracing this? Are they taking this, or they're just focusing on the on the upper LSMs?
And I think it's such a relevant trend we speak about, really. So it goes back to personalization in the local market. We know that personalization must match the income diverse, culturally nuanced South African market, where we have the lower LSM. In other countries, we talk about bottom of the pyramid, and there's specialized products that are being produced for them. So I'll just draw from my experience, when during my time on the supplier side, where we partnered with retailers, really just to cater for exactly what you spoke about. Fabian, and I recall an exercise being done in India, we got out to the rural villages, and we got to engage with shoppers who were all below the breadline, and all they could afford, at that point in time, was just, sort of a 5 rupee, in terms of a basic commodity, and as well as a personal care product. And we had partnered then with suppliers who then developed personal care products in sachets. And we found that this was still able to reduce the cost of, through packaging, cost reduction, but also get product in the hands of that shopper who so desperately needed it. And then when it came to staples and commodities, here again, items were reassessed in terms of what is that benchmark. And not too long ago, I was actually happy to be a part of an exercise that took place in South Africa, where we identified 5 rand, as the basic, sort of, or the entry level, that we could get into, and actually not entry, as the 5 rand being what was earmarked as the affordability bracket. And you'll find brands like, Tiger Brands, through their Tinkies initiative, actually developed a lower grammage Tinky that cost 5 rand. And then we had spaza shops that, were then purchasing loaves of bread, and then they were then, getting that into slices and apportioning slices, and then getting that sold just to get food into the lower LSM. So certainly suppliers do take the responsibility in terms of being able to provide product to serve the shopper, not just in the commodity space, also in the personal care and personal hygiene space, where, where these are, there's these basic need states. If we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to have food, to have shelter, and also I'm able to maintain my sense of hygiene. And it was really pleasing to see these suppliers come together. The other one is, through the Petals brands on sanitary brands that's been, now being developed by the SPA group, that allows sanitary pads to get into the hands of, of young women today, and it costs just 5 rand. So there's lots of initiatives, I think, that are being tailored by, suppliers who come through very responsibly, partnering with key retailers, really just to get to be able to serve these, these challenged South Africans who need these products but are not able to afford the full repertoire of them, in the broader scale.
And I mean, I'm very impressed by retailers who do have initiatives like the one Spa has, and I think it's so important. But in South Africa and other parts of the continent, I think the retail space, particularly fast-moving consumable goods, is where you can really be conscious, right? And sustainable. We make
Absolutely.
offhand comments from big retailers or from big brands that are not in necessarily retail about the importance of caring about one another.
Mhm.
But whether you can actually do something is where you'll see that in retail. Um, is that a bigger consideration when you're a marketer working with these kind of brands? Or is that just something you plug into? You don't necessarily bring it to the table as a marketer. You just plug into and execute.
Look, it is definitely in terms of the key considerations, that together with sustainability and just in terms of what the retail brand value system is and what it stands for. What do you want to be known in your community for? Am I a brand that gives back, a retail brand that gives back to my community and serve them in some sort of way? And you'll find that to that end, this trend that we call conscious retail, where these sort of topics get put onto the agenda of that marketing plan, in terms of having to be able to accrue from a budget perspective. How do we land these initiatives? But it definitely is a conscious, discussion point with action points in terms of how that can be then implemented in trade and in retail.
Fabian, how do you revolutionize conscious retailing?
Yeah, that is definitely a good question. How do we revolutionize conscious retailing?
Let me ask the both of you. See what Dr. Prathana has to say. I think she's actually itching to say something. Prathana, how do you revolutionize conscious retailing?
I think it's really about being aware of the shopper and the consumer that you're serving. And these are two different people, right? So you have the shopper, so mom's shopping, doing her pantry load for the week, and she has to decide, am I able to indulge myself in that branded shampoo just for myself, or do I need to buy an economy pack of shampoo that will service and help my entire family to get, their personal hygiene needs met? So I think it's a conscious reality around who it is that you are marketing to, and around the income bracket. We have such a diverse set of demographics in South Africa, and I think retailers are becoming more conscious of the segmentation around that and how they deliver deliberate strategies that's going to serve the shopper in that space. And then we've got extreme situations of, you've got an LSM 10, which is the upper LSM, or SCM, which is what we now call it. And, you've got the premium products and the niche products that is going to do very well in those areas. But then you've got the domestic that still needs to pop in during their lunchtime or on their way from home and grab that loaf of bread and milk, or basic staple that they're then going to to cook for dinner that night. So it's really about being conscious around the transformation in terms of the shopper, as well as the varying income levels, and what sort of conscious marketing strategies physically in the digital space. Govan, you spoke around broadsheets, and yes, it is very relevant because a large degree of shoppers do not have smartphones. A lot of them rely on USSD, which is the SMS push technology that suppliers and retailers still make use of, just to prompt shoppers and to get them to get into their stores. So again, the consciousness around understanding the variances and serving the varying income levels is so crucial, just to remain ahead of the curve and to get that shopper in your store, right, as opposed to that of your competitor from a retail perspective. So yeah, I think it goes back to that.
I'm proud to say that I still use broadsheets, and not just to shop. Sometimes I like to just pull them out and imagine if I had all the money in the world, I'd get this and I'd get that, which I think is a classical South African experience, to pretend that we can afford everything. Fabian, have you thought about conscientizing or revolutionizing conscious retail?
Yes, no, most definitely. Especially on the African side, which is on I don't know, let's call it the global south, which is what they call us these days. I think that there's a massive need for retailers to really go to delve deeper in that. I think, like Dr. Prathana is saying, there's a lot that is being done. There's good work being done, but there's still more that is necessary, especially given the fact that most of our South African retailers are moving into African countries. So Shoprite is having a footprint in Mozambique. Pick n Pay is having a footprint in Mozambique. Spar has a footprint in Mozambique. Shoprite has bought out one of the big retailers in Zimbabwe, and stuff like that. The perspective definitely has to change. The standard of living in South Africa is not the same standard of living in these African countries. Also, the minimum wage is not the same. I think in Mozambique, for example, it's about about a tenth or an eighth of the minimum wage this side. That's the minimum wage there. So you can only imagine, if ShopRite is rolling the same products in the same fashion and taking on the same strategies into another country, it will not have the same results whatsoever.
So important for marketers to have that in mind. And again, it speaks to the heart of the IMM Friday Flash Talk, which is you need to be thinking about the supply chain and the marketing together, that the two don't exist apart. Um, we're talking about revolutionizing things, right? So we know that AI is being used in marketing retail in South Africa, on the continent, and tracking your product and tracing it is a big draw card for shoppers online. But Dr. Prathna, does is that the revolutionized space? What we're seeing currently with the use of AI and blockchain and transparency, is that retail revolutionized, or are we heading in a even more unfathomable direction?
I think that is a large degree of positive revolution when it comes to retail. So I think with the various loyalty programs, that are now available to shoppers, we're told on average that South African shoppers are actually active participants and members of at least 11 loyalty programs. And for choice where you can get actually the best reward, and with that loyalty data, definitely aligned to South African POPIA Act, retailers then leverage that data to understand who their shoppers are. And back to AI and being able to then, understand and segment the shoppers from a hyper-personalization perspective. And I think Clicks does that really well. They've been doing it, and they were actually the pioneers in terms of direct marketing. And back in the day, you would get the coupon in the mailbox, and then off you go into the Click store and you could redeem a voucher. And obviously, as technology evolved, that's become digital. But I think it's such a great example in terms of using the data and the rich analytics that's now associated with becoming a member of a loyalty program, and the retailer then and supplier understanding what your shopping behavior is, and being able to offer personalized strategies, to the shopper. And the shopper really benefits in this stage, in this instance, because they're able to get the best deal, and it becomes very competitive because suddenly now you've got a spectrum of retailers that understand your shopping behaviors and understand your preferences, and they're able to offer you these varying deals. So you actually spoil for choice, and I think in that way it's positive.
Do South Africans have loyalty fatigue, or is it still climbing?
I think there is a degree of loyalty fatigue, because shoppers are so eager to sign up for these loyalty programs, right? They all want something back. And there becomes obviously at the end of some period of time where they then start to sift to actually which are the programs working for them and which are not. And then they remain loyal to those, and those become the ones that they frequent. But fatigue definitely on the table. I think both in the digital space as well as in the physical space, in a store as well. When you get into just a normal retail environment, and then you have promoters in aisle, and you'll find that's very common in South Africa, trying to grab your attention and draw your attention. Have you signed up for a loyalty program? And this is the benefits you could get, or even just drawing your attention to a product. And the same in the online space, where you get paid searches and you get prompts that actually then, just vie for your screen time. And captured that digital space where you're then given the opportunity at a click of a button to follow a few prompts, and then suddenly you become a member of a loyalty program. And
Yeah.
then
And then I think I've maybe thought marketers use it as an easy strategy to implement. So, we'll do something with loyalty. Before I ask Fabian, so Prathna, just would you mind moving a bit to your right? I want to make sure that sun doesn't hit you.
oh, right.
Perfect.
Okay. Is that
Well, okay, great. Fabian, does the same opportunity for return on investment through loyalty programs exist in other countries on the continent, let's say the SADC area?
Yeah. Once again, I do think we're still a long way off. Extremely long way off. There is, I can count on one hand, the number of big retailers that run loyalty programs outside of South Africa. I can literally count on one hand. It's still a new concept. Actually, how can I explain this? If you look at Mozambique, for example, the culture in Mozambique was always to go to the market. Not a supermarket, no, the market, and do your groceries there, and do for like a week, and then come back at the end of the week again, and maybe do for another 2 weeks, so maybe 3 times a month you're buying your groceries and bits and pieces in the market. You negotiate your prices one-on-one as you buy the products. You get to know the people that are selling stuff, and therefore Mozambique has a lot of markets, a lot of them. And it was basically ShopRite and I think Spar at the same time that introduced the culture of a supermarket where you get in and have a trolley that you're going to walk around with and put stuff in there until you fill it up and you're buying for the whole month, and then you take that home. So it's and this was what we can say 20 years ago. That's when these your South African retail brands first set foot in Mozambique. ShopRite went first, and the others they followed in. And this is no different from other African countries as well. It's sort of that sort of mentality when it comes to keeping the groceries and getting this, getting that. So it's a major culture shift first that these brands are having to deal with first before anything else, which is to get everybody in that habit of the fact that, listen, you can buy your groceries once a month, and then after that, you can now maybe start talking about the fact that you can get them delivered to your house. That's not even there yet, and then start to bring loyalty into that. So I think
Well, I
we
mean,
still
considering the different stages that we're at, Prathna, how do you revolutionize loyalty programs? How have they done it in other, say, developed economies like the UK or US, or are we on a different trajectory?
I think we are trying to follow suit. So, they've sort of kicked off with the initial stages of testing and piloting and got it to quite a fine art. And we've seen the success, with huge groups in the UK. We've seen in the States as well, where these loyalty programs have worked really well. And I think South Africa, our retailers have definitely cottoned on to that element. And I think, there's still a large way to go. I made mention of drone technology, but in the States, you could get your groceries delivered to your home, and you could get a drone unpack it for you. And Walmart's done a really great job of that, internationally. We've tried locally self-checkout. We've tried, other elements here as well that you will benefit and also offer a more convenient approach for our shoppers. But yes, I think in developing countries or developed countries, we've seen the success stories and the aspiration now of developing countries, to get there. And I think just to concur with what Fabian has said, Africa remains a challenge, and I think it will always be a challenge given the shopper profile and the dynamics and I think just Africa with regards to the limitation of regulation. And how do you get regulated product in the hand of the shopper? Because shoppers are willing to go into the market and they're willing to make that purchase and, sort of pantry load for 2 weeks or up to a month, but not all of the product is regulated. And then, you're competing with the retail sectors that, where products come at a higher cost because of regulation. And therefore, it's easier for them, to get into a market environment and just have that informal trading experience. But I think there's still a long way to go in terms of our learnings, even for South Africa, and to get to the next levels of convenience in offering our shopper that frictionless experience that we spoke to earlier on.
And at the end of the day, it's well, let me ask you this question, Prathna. What is it about at the end of the day? Are you trying to build customer loyalty through revolutionizing your marketing strategy, or are you trying to break away from the pack? Kind of like what, say, the big three, Spar, Checkers, Pick and Pay, are doing with the way that they're revolutionizing the marketing.
It's definitely customer loyalty. It's such a tough competitive environment. If you look at the retail competitive landscape in South Africa, in terms of formal retail and traditional retail and the price points that shoppers, are then hit with and they're able to get into a store environment or online environment, it all comes back to locking in the loyalty. And it goes back even to a supplier or a branded good producer. We talk about brand equity. Because if you're able to get your brand on that list of the shopper, on that shopping list before they even get into a store, they already cued that, they get into a store and this is the brand that I'm purchasing. And less swayed if it's, they're able to do pricing, but you want to get equity built. And similarly in the retail space, once loyalty is locked in, that the shopper would, particularly not look to other competitive environments to whether they need to purchase top up, or a month in purchase, and then you remain that shopper. You get that shopper to be locked in, and committed to purchasing at your retail outlet, and that ultimately means success, right, for the retailer, or not, through that loyalty. So I think it's an important one.
I suppose it's all about customer experience. Fabian, what do you think of the way customer experience has been revolutionized, say, over the past 5 years, and which direction it's going into?
Are we talking customer experience in store,
I think
virtual, or both, actually?
customer experience in terms of interfacing with the marketing for, first of all, the wholesalers or the big supermarkets, and then the brands themselves on the shelves, because I think
Yeah.
that has undergone a radical shift over the last few years.
Yeah. No, I think Dr. Prathana actually really underlined it when we're talking about AI and how it's being used to even cater to the lower LSMs and data leveraging and the likes. I think brands in South Africa have come to appreciate the fact that there must be collaboration through the supply chain in order to cough out some value at the end. Who's getting the value is the final customer. Who's getting the value? It's the extremely diverse market that is in South Africa, where you got people with a lot of money, people with medium money, people with a little money, and people with almost no money. And you're trying to break through that line. You're trying to appeal to as many of them as you possibly can. You're not trying to stick to a niche. Well, you can actually, but yes, most of the brands are trying to address the entire market best they can. And I think there's a new appreciation for supply chain integration in this case, a new appreciation for the fact that this starts all the way from the manufacturer. Responsibility is taken all the way from the suppliers. Responsibility is taken throughout the distribution process as well. Brands are willing to explore. We talk of what you call that, intermodal, transportation, where you're bringing in sort of what can I call it, a concoction in terms of how you move products around different markets, how you move products all the way from Asia and the likes, if it's things that are imported, bringing them all the way into your stores here. We've learned to appreciate having to explore different ways and work with different suppliers and work with different distribution systems. But the goal is to lower down costs. The goal is to bring it down for the final customer. And I think in that, there's a lot of value that's been given to the customer experience. The customer experience must be, yes?
How would you approach the supply chain to revolutionize it, make it resilient, make it reliant in 2025? Is it different to, so on the IMM Friday Flash Talk, we like to talk about synchronizing the work of the marketing team and the supply chain team. In 2025, when you revolutionize the supply chain to make it resilient and reliant, what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do to match it up?
Yeah. I think it's all about data. It's all about data and data systems. For example, I like what Pick n Pay has done. When they did the whole uh, brand rebranding in 2010, I think that was. They also, brought in a totally an ecosystem in terms of how they're running operations, which is the enterprise resource planning from SAP. They brought that in and they built distribution centers that are actually running on the system. So their entire inventory system, all the way from in-store, all the way from the point that at the tool point, something is scanned, there is information that is running through the back end all the way to the distribution centers and all the way to the suppliers. So I think it lies in the data, and it lies in, the same way we're talking of how companies can leverage data to better markets. I think when it comes to supply chain, it's also leveraging data to be able to get the right product at the right place at the right time, and the right spec at the right price. Pick n Pay is able from one platform to know where every truck is headed around the country and what it is carrying and what time it's going to get there and which suppliers fed into that system, and all of that is it's data-based. It's data-based. So I think it's an appreciation of what we can do with big data in our supply chain. And
But it can kick up your marketing strategy. We investigated the Port of Durban and the delays that lasted, say, over a month for some of these shipping containers that were bringing retail items in. And in South Africa, we do deal with other unexpected disruptions to the supply chain, which may impact on the promise that the marketer has made, such as load shedding or crime. Prathana, do you know how we deal with that? How do we build up the agility to navigate that?
Yes, I think I can think of a few examples, and it goes back to the question, is your supply chain resilient or is it reliant? And you touched on some, a few relevant points in terms of load shedding, crime, and blockages at the port resulting in the lack of movement of goods. And what does that mean? It ultimately means that the shopper in store does not have product on shelf to shop from, and neither are you able to serve, through the e-commerce channel in terms of getting that product through. So I think a great example, that comes to mind is Massmart's last mile logistics investments. And this really just helped with local procurement in terms of the shifts post-COVID, in terms of being able to actually equip, local procurement, and get that agility through the supply chain ecosystem to make certain that product does get to the shelf at the right time to ultimately get put into the shopper of the basket. The basket of the shopper. And I think really just, drawing from the insight there is that retail transformation will certainly fail. We talk about revolutionizing retail, but when supply chains don't meet and they don't adapt to South African realities and the challenges that we face, we're going to have a sort of a failed scenario in the marketing strategy, because it all comes to fruition when the product is purchased, whether it's in store, whether it's online. But if the product through the supply chain failure is actually not able to get through that medium, then ultimately the sale does not happen. And I think that's great food for thought in terms of revolutionizing the supply chain to enhance marketing strategies.
Absolutely. I think that we've given marketers who are attending the Friday breakfast at the IMM Graduate School a lot of food for thought. And yet there's still one big question, which I think is outstanding to the both of you. What do marketers need to be doing today when conceptualizing strategies for retail that will make them relevant tomorrow and well into the future? Fabian, you can go first.
I think what marketers need to be doing today when putting together their strategies is to appreciate technology and appreciate how far we have come, and the fact that I wouldn't say, before COVID, we would have said that the industry is in its infancy. But post-COVID, I think we're all well aware of the fact that this industry is not it's in its infancy now. It's moving at an exponential rate. There's a lot of culture changes that came with COVID in terms of how we work, how we do things, and how much we appreciate convenience. And I think marketers need to appreciate digital technologies and how those can be used to increase customer value. But I think on the South African end as well, they also need to appreciate the landscape, the economic, the socio-cultural landscape that we find ourselves in. It's one that's particular, it's one that's different, it's one that's unique. And you need to somehow merge all of those points together in a way that you are bringing in convenience, you are bringing in technology, you are bringing in data leveraging, but at the same time you're very conscious of the fact that this is not a market like Europe. And they must also be aware of the fact that before they expand globally, they'll probably expand into Africa first, and
Yep.
Africa is an even more different dynamic. So yeah.
Dr. Prathana, what do you think retail marketers need to do today to be relevant tomorrow and well into the future?
So I think my colleagues touched on many of the key elements, but the one that comes to mind, I think, was quite important, is the social commerce piece and the influencer retail. So, social media has become such an important tool. And it's not just a marketing tool, it's now seen as a conversion tool. I mean, how many today's South Africans and across varying age demographics have access to an online platform, follow some sort of blogger on social media, and a lot of them trust in the brand, that they then promote. So, there's this trend around the influencer retail. And also, I think the most powerful salesperson may actually not be in store. They might be online, they might be unpaid, and they might be younger than you think. So how do you then get to appreciate, these varying levels of influences that we do have and that you can tap into, really just to build your brand equity, to get the brand name out there, and just to really get visibility in terms of what the brand stands for. So I think that's key. It is. South Africa has got to a position of developing these across, the various retail sectors. You also get it in core beauty. We've seen the great example of Switch Beauty, which was actually founded by a team back then. It was actually built on Instagram. And through TikTok, this became a customer-driven content with flash sales in the platform itself. So this was how the brand materialized. And I think just thinking out of the box in terms of understanding the ever-evolving South African shopper. And when I say ever-evolving, with huge focus around, the evolving nature of the shopper due to, the demographics as well as the challenges that South Africans face. Be it, the load shedding, which we've got slight relief now. Is it crime? The unemployment rate. And how do you then cater, for the various SEMs as well as the varying income brackets that you need to evolve and get that shopper tapped into your brand into the future?
Absolutely. Well, I think we've revolutionized retail on this Friday Flash Talk, and I'd like to thank both of you. Before we go, Fabian and Prathna, if you could both give me your two main points that you think are important for marketers to consider to take away from this conversation, and to possibly have next to their PCs to keep top of mind, take it into the meeting room, and hopefully perform better within the marketing team when dealing with retail strategies. Fabian?
Yeah, now for me, I think it's quite simple. It's digital technologies and everything that comes with that, whether it's AI, whether it's simply data analytics, and being able to always incorporate that into their strategies. And the second part, of course, is the socio-cultural landscape in South Africa. Having more and more brands cater for the fact that you got an extremely large part of the population living under $1 a day. I think will make brands even more and more successful. As much as I'm not bringing less importance to the other elements of the market, the other pockets of the market, but it's the ability to accommodate as well the lower LSMs and be cognizant of that.
Prathna, what are your
So,
takeaways?
so for me, I think the one that certainly is in keeping with the trend, and I think the future is omni-channel retail. Where consumers expect frictionless transitions across the platforms, and Even in the apparel side, we've seen, the Mr. Price Group integrating their online as well as their app and in-store stock visibility. They even have WhatsApp engagement. So how do you really, get to serve that shopper by offering, even in this case, a click and collect and an in-app lay-by option? And really about, the question around in your marketing strategy, can your shopper start a journey online and end with it in-store and with ease? So do you want to still get feet into the store? Because we know that in store, there are peripheral decisions and there's impulse buys. So you definitely get more into your shopper's basket in an in-store environment. So how do you get them to end their journey in store? And yes, you always get your shopper that's looking for ultimate convenience and they will shop online. But how do you make, what we call the phygital customer, just really offering them that seamless experience? So I think that was the first one. And I think the second one is really around, upskilling talent and the retail talent for the future. What are the sort of skill sets that you need to equip your stores, where the in-store teams are at the coal face of the shopper, whether it's greeting the shopper, not everyone has a good day, and you find that when you get into a retail environment and you're looking for something and you're trying to get to your product and you're not really greeted by the merchandiser in store in a positive way, it sort of sways your shopping experience. So how do you then get to, in terms of getting that shopper experience in store that is met with the positivity that the shopper is looking for? And then again, how do you get the retail talent for the future in terms of also getting to teams, in the online space in terms of the omni-channel, and how do they then use the digital marketing strategies in terms of business transformation and getting them to understand, what do you need to learn today to lead and win the shopper for tomorrow? Because, your greatest asset may not be your tech. It's actually your people who understand how to use the tech and how to ultimately, get to the shopper to convert them to purchase your brand or to shop at your retail outlet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Prathana Amrithlal. She is, well, one of the leading innovators in the world of retail marketing. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope that everyone watching at home has also learned a lot and at the breakfast. We hope that you will also be taking this conversation further. Prathana, I think that you've mentioned a lot of strategies, which I hope the marketers watching will be implementing. Thank you also to Fabian Tamele. He is our resident specialist from the IMM Graduate School, a seasoned digital marketing academic. I've enjoyed having both of you on. I've certainly learnt, and I know that the conversation will continue on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Drop those comments, share the post, and give us some feedback. As always, it's been a pleasure hosting the IMM Friday Flash Talk. From myself, Govin Whittles. I'll see you next time.